In the book Radical Possibilities by Gene Onion, in Chapter 5, New Hope for Urban Students, he claims that government economic policies continue to support a consistent level of poverty among our minority urban populations. Onion believes that these policies can prevent children from developing their full potential. Parents who perform two jobs normally do not have the time or the energy to be involved in their child's development. Some parents also become very conscious of their socioeconomic plight, and oftentimes they feel very ashamed of their situation. According to Onion, poverty in and of itself does not prevent anyone from obtaining an education, but he says it can certainly limit a person's opportunities. Onion also claims that when parents obtain higher paying jobs, or if they acquire more income, then their children's educational achievement will improve. Onion also argues the point that federal policies affect personal and family poverty, and these policies also contribute to the decline in property tax base. After World War II, and the World War II policies and during the suburbanization of American cities, Onion states that federal policies helped many businesses to move away from the inner cities and into the suburbs. Not only were residents leaving, but also businesses like supermarkets, banks, offices, hospitals, and so on. And even after some cities were redeveloped many years later, and large corporations began moving in and doing business in the city, Onion claims that they contribute very little taxes. And so funding for programs, especially education, did not receive much funding from these businesses. And one of the main reasons Onion claims is because of the tax breaks that they were getting from the government. This has resulted in the urban school systems being underfunded. Research shows that the lack of financial resources to cities and to urban education has resulted in a gap to minority students and to funding education in large districts. The Education Trust study of 2001 revealed that a persistent funding gap helps to clarify the effects of family poverty in urban communities. Urban Children and Social Class, Onion says that in 2010, after the Depression, the percentage of children living in poverty or near poverty had increased over 40 years. He states that Black children, American Indian children, and even our Hispanic children, that this comprise a disproportionate number of low-income children. Onion says that 31% of white children, or roughly 12.1 million children, live in low-income families. 64% of Black children, or 6.5 million, 31% of Asian children, or 1 million, and 63% of American Indian children, or 0.4 million, all live in low-income families. And Onion says that while a large number of our low-income children live in rural areas, the majority of our low-income children do live in urban communities and in the inner cities. The socioeconomic status or the social class of a family is directly correlated to the educational achievement of the family and to their children. Research shows that the higher the resource and the higher the background of the child's family, the higher the achievement. So how does poverty and low socioeconomic status affect school and affect the achievement of our children? Onion makes it very clear that while poverty doesn't affect a child's cognitive growth, it prevents opportunities for their educational achievement. He makes reference to cultural capital, and this is something that upper and middle class children have that helps them to perform well in schools, to do well on standardized tests, but this is something that our low minority students do not have. And Onion argues that it is an unfair expectation because school systems expect or low minority students to have cultural capital, but it's not like the schools are providing this to the children. So Onion clearly articulates the point that the problems that urban students have with their standardized tests, these come about as a result of their low socioeconomic status and of them living in poverty. It has nothing to do with their skin color or their genetic. And he provides a list of factors that can lower students' academic achievement, and some of this includes lack of primary medical care, frequent absences, lack of eyeglasses, frequent and long-term unemployment for parents and family members, a loss of housing, which normally causes students to move to new schools very frequently, and of course, neighborhoods that have a high crime rate. These factors, Onion claims, all have negative effects on how our poor children perform in schools and how they perform on standardized tests. There's a body of research that Onion claims that this research supports the fact that high income supports children's educational achievement. The MDRC, or the Manpower Development Research Corporation, they published reports in 2001 that supported the fact that single mothers who receive some kind of assistance, government assistance, whether it is welfare, it is in the form of subsidized health care, it is providing counseling for their children or after school care, that even these small supplements do make a difference to these working mothers. The research shows an improvement in the test scores of these children. So therefore, these reports established the point that while the government assistance programs do not bring the families out of poverty, but they do help to create an improvement in the children's educational achievement. Onion makes the conclusion that when a family's socioeconomic status improves, or they acquire more resources and more family support, then they're now able to provide more time and help to their children, which will result in an improved education. For example, if poor parents are able to provide computers, access to the internet, after-school tutoring, or to enroll their students in sports and after-school programs like arts programs, then their children will improve their academic achievement. Onion concludes that educational equity should be the goal for all our urban students. And if more resources were provided to urban families, then their children would have access to better opportunities and would eventually perform better in schools and have increased achievement. And as a teacher in the education system and in the public school system, and having worked with so many minority students over the years, I know that when these children receive more support, I know that when these children receive support from their parents, from their families, I know that when the government provides more assistance to these children, to these families, then I do see that it has a positive effect on these children and on their families. And I see the improvement in these children's performance in my classroom.